I gave her everything. My retirement, my trust, my future. She said we were building something together. But the only thing she built was a trap. And I walked right into it. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. This story was shared with us by one of our viewers. I was sitting across from Apsara at this riverside restaurant in Chiang Mai 3 months after I'd arrived in Thailand, and she was laughing at something I'd said. I can't even remember what it was now. But I remember the way her eyes crinkled at the corners, the way she leaned forward like what I was saying actually mattered. It had been 4 years since Margaret died. 4 years of waking up in that empty house in Surrey, making coffee for one, eating dinner in front of the television with nobody to talk to. I'd spent 37 years flying commercial jets across the world, and suddenly I had nowhere to go. So I came here. Chiang Mai, warm weather, low cost of living. A place where I could just exist, without the constant reminders of everything I'd lost. "You're funny, Declan," she said, still smiling. "You don't give yourself enough credit." "I'm just an old pilot," I said. "Nothing special." "That's not true," she said softly. She reached across the table and touched my hand. Just her fingertips, light, warm. "You've lived an amazing life. You've seen the world. You have stories most people only dream about." I looked down at her hand on mine. It had been so long since anyone had touched me like that. Not with pity, not with obligation, just with genuine warmth. She was beautiful in a way that wasn't loud or demanding. She wore simple clothes, spoke perfect English, and had this calm confidence that made me feel like I could breathe around her. She told me she worked in investment consulting, helping expats manage their money smartly in Thailand. I didn't ask too many questions. I was just grateful she was there. "You know," she said, pulling her hand back gently, "I meet a lot of foreigners here. Most of them are just looking for something easy, something temporary. But you're different." "How so?" "You actually want to live," she said, "not just exist. I can see it in your eyes." I didn't know what to say to that. She was right, but I hadn't realized it until she said it out loud. I did want to live. I wanted to feel something again. Anything. I'd spent 4 years in a fog, going through the motions, pretending I was okay when I wasn't. Margaret's death had gutted me. Cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. I held her hand in that hospital room and watched the light leave her eyes, and something in me died with her. Our kids were grown and lived their own lives in different cities. They called on birthdays and holidays. But they had families of their own. I was alone. "I don't know if I'm different," I said quietly. "I'm just trying to figure out what comes next. Maybe I can help with that," she said. Her voice was gentle, not pushy, just offering. "I've been here 5 years. I know this city. I know how things work. And I know how expats can make their money work for them instead of just spending it. I'm not really looking to invest," I said. "I'm just living off my pension." "I understand," she said, nodding. "But you've worked hard your whole life, Declan. Don't you want your money to work for you now? There are opportunities here, safe opportunities. I've helped other retirees grow their savings. It's what I do. I should have seen it then, that first seed. But I didn't. I was too busy looking at her smile, too busy feeling like someone finally saw me as more than just another sad widower killing time in Southeast Asia. She didn't press. She just let it sit there, soft and unassuming, like it was no big deal. We finished our meal. She paid for her half. She didn't let me cover it. That impressed me. She wasn't after a free dinner. She was independent, strong. As we walked along the river afterward, she linked her arm through mine and said, "You deserve more than just existing, Declan. You deserve to live again." I believed her. 2 weeks later, she invited me to her office. I didn't even know she had an office until then. We'd been meeting for coffee, taking walks, talking about our lives. She told me about her failed marriage, how her ex-husband had left her with nothing, how she'd rebuilt herself from scratch. She told me about her younger cousin, Nong, who she was raising alone. It made me want to protect her. I know how that sounds. An old man wanting to be the hero. But that's what it felt like. She made me feel useful again. Her office was in the Niman district, tucked into one of those modern co-working spaces, with glass walls and clean lines. It looked legitimate, professional. When I walked in, she was already there with a man in his early 50s, Thai, wearing a crisp white shirt and expensive watch. He stood up and smiled, extending his hand. "Declan, this is Kun Somchai," Apsara said. "My business partner." "Pleasure to meet you," Somchai said. His English was perfect, his handshake firm, but he never quite looked me in the eye. I noticed that right away, but I didn't think much of it. Cultural difference, I told myself. We sat down and Apsara poured tea. Somchai opened a laptop and turned it toward me. On the screen was a sleek presentation with graphs, photos of construction sites, images of solar panels and high-rise buildings. "We run a private investment fund," Somchai said. "We pool capital from expats and a few select local investors, and we invest in Thai real estate developments and green energy projects. The market here is growing rapidly, and the returns are very consistent." "How consistent?" I asked. 18 to 22% annually, he said, as casually as if he were telling me the weather. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it sounded absurd. "That's not realistic," I said. "Nobody gets returns like that consistently." Apsara leaned forward. "Declan, I know it sounds too good to be true. I thought the same thing when I first heard about it. But I've been invested for 3 years now. I wouldn't bring you into something I didn't believe in." "You're invested?" I asked. "Of course," she said. "I wouldn't ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself." Somchai slid a folder across the table. Inside were polished documents, contracts, bank statements, showing transfers and returns. It all looked legitimate, professional, real. He explained how the fund worked, how the money was spread across multiple projects to minimize risk, how withdrawals could be made with 30 days' notice. It sounded safe, controlled. I told them I'd think about it. That night, Apsara and I went for drinks at a quiet bar near the old city. She didn't bring up the investment. We just talked. She told me about growing up in Chiang Mai, about losing her parents young, about having to take care of Nong when she was barely an adult herself. She was vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen before. She cried a little when she talked about her ex-husband, how he'd made her feel worthless, how she'd had to claw her way back to feeling like herself again. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping her eyes. "I don't usually talk about this stuff." "Don't apologize," I said. "I'm glad you trust me." "I do trust you," she said. "That's why I wanted you to meet Somchai. I know this could help you, Declan. But I also know you've been hurt. I know what it's like to be afraid to trust again." She was right. I was afraid. But sitting there with her, I didn't feel afraid. I felt seen. I felt needed. And that was enough to make me want to believe. I lay awake that night in my rented condo, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the city outside. My phone was on the nightstand. I'd drafted a message to Tim, my old co-pilot and closest friend back in London. He'd been asking about Thailand, about how I was doing, about this woman I'd mentioned in passing. I'd written, "Thinking about investing some money here. What do you think?" But I didn't send it. I knew what he'd say. He'd tell me to be careful. He'd ask questions I didn't want to answer. He'd make me doubt. So I deleted the message and opened my banking app instead. I transferred £50,000 into the account Somchai had given me. It felt like a leap, but it also felt like faith. I wanted to believe in something again. The next morning I told Apsara. She was at my door within an hour, throwing her arms around me, holding me tight. "You won't regret this," she said. "I promise. This is just the beginning for us." She showed me the investor dashboard that afternoon. It was slick and professional, with my name at the top and my balance displayed in real time. Every day I could log in and see small gains adding up. 0.3% here, 0.5% there. It felt real. It felt like I'd made the right choice. Over the next month, Apsara and I grew closer. We took weekend trips to Pai, wandering through the night markets, staying in little guest houses with mountain views. She introduced me to her aunt and uncle one evening, and they were warm and welcoming, feeding me homemade curry and asking about my life. She talked about our future like it was something we were building together. She asked me what I wanted. "Peace," I told her. "Just peace." But there was this small thing nagging at me. I hadn't seen Nong since that first visit to the office. I asked Apsara about her once casually, and she said, "Oh, she's been busy with school." But something in her voice was off, tight. I didn't push it. I didn't want to seem paranoid. I wanted to trust her. I needed to trust her. 3 months in, Apsara arranged a video call. She said there was someone I should meet, someone who could help me take the next step. I didn't know what that meant, but I agreed. We sat together in her apartment, her laptop open on the coffee table, and she dialed in. A man appeared on the screen, mid-40s, sharp suit, clean-shaven, sitting in what looked like a high-rise office with a view of a city skyline. "Declan, this is Mr. Gerald Tan," Apsara said. "He's a financial advisor based in Singapore. He manages portfolios for high-net-worth expats across Southeast Asia." "Pleasure to meet you, Declan," Gerald said. His voice was smooth, confident, like a man who'd done this 1,000 times. "Apsara speaks very highly of you." "Likewise," I said, though I didn't know anything about him. Gerald launched into a presentation. He talked about a luxury resort development in Phuket that was in its final funding round. The project had already secured financing from major banks, he said, but they were opening a limited opportunity for private investors to get in on the ground floor. Minimum entry was £150,000. Projected return was 35% in 18 months. "I don't have that kind of money to throw around," I said. "I understand," Gerald said, "but this is a rare opportunity, Declan. These projects don't come along often. And with your initial investment already performing well, this could set you up for a very comfortable retirement." I looked at Apsara. She was watching me, her hand resting on my knee. "I'm putting in money too," she said quietly. "A lot of money. I wouldn't do that if I didn't believe in this. I need to think about it," I said. "Of course," Gerald said, "but I'll need to know by the end of the week. The funding round closes Friday." After the call ended, I sat there feeling sick. £150,000. That was more than a third of my pension. If something went wrong, I'd be devastated. But Apsara leaned into me, her head on my shoulder, and said, "I know it's scary, but I wouldn't ask if I didn't believe in us." Us, that word did something to me. I wanted there to be an us. I wanted to believe we were building something real. That night I called Tim. It was late in London, but he picked up. "Dec, how are you?" he asked, his voice groggy. "I need advice," I said. "Go on." "There's this investment opportunity. Resort in Phuket. Big returns, but it's a lot of money." There was a long pause. Then Tim said, "How much?" "150. Pounds?" "Yeah." "Declan, don't do it. You don't even know the details." "I don't need to. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. You know that. You've always known that." "Apsara's investing too." Another pause. "This is the woman you've been seeing?" "Yeah." "Dec, listen to me. I'm saying this because I love you. Be careful. You're vulnerable right now. Don't let someone take advantage of that." I felt anger rising in my chest. "She's not taking advantage of me." "I hope you're right," Tim said. "But please just slow down. Don't do anything rash." I hung up. I was furious. Not at Tim, at myself. Because part of me knew he was right. But I didn't want him to be. I wanted Apsara to be the real thing. I wanted this life I was building to mean something. So I transferred the money, £150,000. I did it that night, sitting alone in my condo, hands shaking as I confirmed the transaction. When I told Apsara the next morning, she kissed me deeply, holding my face in her hands, and said, "You just changed our lives." I wanted to believe her. But over the next few weeks, things started to shift, small things at first. The investor dashboard stopped updating as frequently. When I asked Apsara about it, she said there was a technical issue, that Somchai was working on it. She seemed distracted, always on her phone, always in meetings. When I suggested we take another trip, she said she was too busy. I tried to be understanding. She was working, building something, but I missed her. The warmth I'd felt at the beginning was fading, replaced by something colder, something distant. One night, I showed up at her office unannounced. I told myself I was just surprising her, bringing dinner, being thoughtful. But the truth was I was suspicious. When I walked in, the space was nearly empty. Just one desk. Apsara sitting there with her laptop, looking startled when she saw me. "Declan," she said, standing quickly. "What are you doing here?" "I brought food," I said, holding up the bag. "Thought we could eat together." "That's sweet," she said, but her voice was tight. "But I'm really busy tonight." I looked around. "Where's Somchai?" "He's working remotely now," she said. "We've moved most operations online. It's more efficient." "And Nong?" She's at school, Apsara said quickly. Too quickly. I set the bag down on the desk. Can I ask you something? Of course. Can I withdraw some money from the fund? Just 10,000. I need to cover some expenses. Her face changed, just for a second, a flash of panic. Then she recovered, forcing a smile. There's a 30-day processing period for withdrawals, and there are early withdrawal penalties. It's in the contract. I don't remember that. It's there, she said. I can show you. Why would there be penalties? I thought this was liquid. It is, she said. After 30 days, I stared at her. She stared back. Then she said, her voice softer, almost wounded, "Don't you trust me?" And just like that, the doubt turned inward. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was projecting my fears onto her. I apologized. I told her I trusted her. She kissed my cheek and said she'd see me tomorrow. But when I got home, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with my laptop open, searching for Gerald Tan. I typed his name into Google, LinkedIn, every professional network I could think of. Nothing, no profile. No firm, no history, just a ghost. My stomach dropped. I searched for Somchai's company name. Nothing. Just generic results that had nothing to do with the fund. I tried to log into the investor dashboard. The website was still there, but the numbers hadn't changed in 2 weeks. I refreshed. Nothing. I felt the panic rising in my chest, cold and sharp. I didn't confront her. I was too afraid of what it would mean if I was right. 2 weeks later, Apsara came to my condo in tears. She was shaking, barely able to speak. I pulled her inside, sat her down, held her hands. "What happened?" I asked. "It's Nong," she said, her voice breaking. "She's in the hospital. Emergency surgery. She has appendicitis. They need to operate now, but I don't have insurance. They won't do it unless I pay up front." "How much?" I asked. 30,000, she said. "I know it's a lot. I wouldn't ask if I had any other choice." I looked at her. Her face was red, her eyes swollen. She looked terrified, desperate, and I believed her. I pulled out my phone and transferred the money. She hugged me, sobbing into my shoulder, thanking me over and over. Then she left. She said she was going straight to the hospital. I offered to come with her, but she said no, that it would be too much chaos, that she'd call me as soon as Nong was out of surgery. I sat alone in my condo and waited. Hours passed, no call. I tried texting. No response. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. 3 days later, she came back. She looked fine, calm, rested, like nothing had happened. "How's Nong?" I asked. "She's fine now," Apsara said. "Thank you for helping. Can I see her?" "She's staying with family while she recovers." "Which family?" "Declan, why are you interrogating me?" I wasn't interrogating her. I was just asking. But the way she said it made me feel small, paranoid, crazy. I apologized. Again. She stayed for an hour, then said she had to go. I tried to kiss her, but she turned her head and I caught her cheek instead. After she left, I sat down and opened my laptop. I tried to log into the investment portal. The site was gone. Just an error message. "Page not found." I called the number Gerald had given me. Disconnected. I called Somchai's number. Disconnected. My hands were shaking as I opened my banking app. I scrolled through the transactions. Transfer after transfer after transfer. 50,000. 150,000. 30,000. Smaller amounts in between. Over £890,000. 6 months. My entire retirement. Gone. I sat on the floor of my condo and stared at the wall. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, numb, trying to understand how I'd let this happen. How I'd been so stupid, so desperate, so blind. The next day I went to her apartment. I didn't call ahead. I just went. The door was unlocked. I walked in. She was packing. Clothes folded neatly into a suitcase. She looked up when she saw me. No surprise. No guilt, just calm. "Was any of it real?" I asked. My voice was shaking. She didn't answer right away. She just kept folding a shirt, smoothing out the wrinkles with her hands. Then she said, "You wanted to feel needed, Declan. I gave you that. I gave you everything. You gave me money," she said. "That's not everything. I trusted you. That was your choice." I wanted to yell. I wanted to break something. But I just stood there frozen as she zipped up her suitcase and walked past me. She didn't look back. She didn't say goodbye. She just left. And I stood alone in her empty apartment, trying to figure out how to breathe. I don't remember walking outside. I don't remember sitting down on the curb. But that's where I was when Pitak found me. He was a motorcycle taxi driver I'd used a few times, always waiting outside the apartment complex. He didn't speak much English, but he had kind eyes. He sat down next to me, didn't say anything for a while. Then he pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and handed it to me. I don't smoke. I never have. But I took it anyway. We sat there in silence as the sun set over Chiang Mai, the sky turning orange and pink, the city settling into its evening rhythm. Finally, Pitak said softly, "She'd do this before." "You not first," I nodded. I already knew. I'd known for weeks. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. I stayed in Thailand. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't afford to leave. I moved out of the condo and into a cheaper room on the outskirts of the city. One room, shared bathroom, thin walls. I picked up freelance work teaching English online, a few hours a day, just enough to cover rent and food. I reached out to a small charter airline and did some consulting work for them, helping with route planning. It wasn't much, but it was something. I didn't tell anyone what had happened. I didn't report it to the police. What would I say? That I'd willingly handed over my life savings to a woman I barely knew because I was lonely. That I'd ignored every red flag because I wanted so badly to believe I mattered to someone. I tried calling Tim once. He asked if I was okay. I said I will be. I wasn't sure if that was true, but I said it anyway. I wake up every day now. I eat, I walk. I watch the monks in their orange robes walking through the streets in the early morning, collecting alms, moving with a peace I can't understand. Pitak brings me fruit sometimes, mangoes, papayas. He doesn't ask questions. He just leaves them by my door. I started writing in a journal. Just thoughts, memories, trying to make sense of what happened. One entry I wrote says, "I wanted to be loved so badly I forgot to ask if I was safe." I read that line over and over. It's the truest thing I've ever written. A few weeks ago, I went back to the Riverside restaurant where I first met Apsara. I don't know why. Maybe I was punishing myself. Maybe I was trying to reclaim something. The table we sat at was empty. I ordered a coffee and sat there, watching the river, listening to the sounds of life moving around me. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired. But also lighter, like I'd finally put down something I'd been carrying for too long. I don't have my money back. I don't have closure. I don't have justice. But I have something quieter. The truth. The painful, necessary truth. And maybe in time that will be enough. I sit there now, sipping my coffee, watching the water move, and I just breathe.